Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching and happy Thursday, I think. Welcome back to the BPHL Facebook Live series. I'm Michelle Histand, Executive Director for BPHL, and I'm super excited to have a guest today who is actually used to doing interviews, so there's a lot of pressure here today. Today we are with Loraine Ballard Morrill from iHeartMedia. Loraine is the Director of News and Community Affairs for iHeartMedia Philadelphia, and we're so excited to have you. Thanks so much, Loraine.
This is great, and I'm not used to being on the other side of you, so I'm a little nervous, but I'm very happy to be here because you guys do some really awesome work. So,
Oh my gosh, thank you. I'm really nervous because you're the pro here, so there's a lot of pressure for me to not stink. So I hope I can do you proud. So tell us a little bit about your job, which is so incredible. Tell us a little bit more about what you do in your role.
well, I oversee news and community affairs for the 6 iHeart media stations, and that's been an amazing experience for me. I've worked for some iteration of the company for, get ready for it, 37 years, and yeah,
It's amazing.
math and try to figure out how old I am. But it started out at Power 99 in 1983. And with companies buying and selling stations and consolidating, etc., it finally ended up with this current configuration. So my job is wonderful. Every day is a new adventure. I get to be on the air. I get to meet a lot of amazing people. I get to go out into the community and I hope provide information and support that's empowering.
Oh man, I am such a fangirl of yours. It's kind of crazy. Guys, if you Google Loraine, you'll just see pictures of her with all these amazing people. So she really has just been so plugged in and met so many people. And I think honestly, I mean, while that is really cool, I think what I'm most in awe of is that you just do this amazing amount of community service. I mean, it's phenomenal. I wanted to kind of mention some of the boards that you've been on and some of the things you do. And I ended up with like a full page list of all of the things. So, I mean, this woman creates media campaigns for things that are focused on stuff like racial harmony, incredibly important topics that just make a difference in the world. She serves as a board member on a million institutes and organizations. He runs races to raise money for the American Cancer Society. I mean, like, wow, you're kind of putting the rest of us to shame here. It's pretty incredible. So yeah, no, it's really neat. And I think I really am just so incredibly impressed and humbled by the work that you do. So I guess, I want to talk about how your work has changed since the COVID outbreak and in our current situation. It looks like you're all set up there. Are you at home with your setup there?
No, I'm one of the few people that actually comes into work almost every day because I'm COVID-19 updates for all the 6 stations. So I really have to be here for that. And it's been quite an experience to be able to come in. I used to do regular news a long time ago, but it's been a long time since I've had to do that. So it's been really exciting and interesting to be able to provide people with factual uh, information. No fake news here. It's all vetted news and hopefully news that people can use. It's not just the latest death count because everyone is reporting on that, but really where can you get food? Where can you get assistance for rent? Where can you go to get assistance for unemployment? So a lot of what I do is really pushing out information that people can use as they try to cope with this pandemic.
I love that. I was going to ask you, media is so important right now, right? I mean, I joked to my husband yesterday that I actually got an online subscription to the New York Times. Like, who am I? Before, my biggest source of news was maybe Instagram. So I think now we're all really tuning in more, and media is so important. And I wanted to ask you what you think, what do you think the role of media is? But I think you've touched on it. It's for you really to provide an incredible resource. And you do such a good job of that. Is there somewhere that folks can go to hear those resources, to find those resources, to listen to some of your shows?
Well, you can go to any of our station websites like wdasfm.com, Power 99, the new Alt 104.5, which is our latest radio station, all the stations, Q102, The Breeze. All of those stations have websites, and you can always go onto those websites in order to catch my interviews. I have a couple of public affairs programs, and also the iHeartRadio app under podcasts. If you uh, check out Loraine with one R, you can find me there. So those are some of the ways that you can hear some of my interviews that I do. But if you're listening to the radio stations, you'll inevitably run into one of my reports because I'm on twice an hour on most of the stations.
Oh, that's so incredible. I love that. And a lot of those stations are my presets on my radio in my car. I don't get to listen as much these days, so I'll have to download the app because I'm not in the car much these days, as you would imagine. I'm spending a lot of time at home. But I think, again, I mentioned that what I really appreciate most about you is that you are always providing resources and really just a tireless champion for the community. And in many cases, it's in underserved communities. So I wonder if you can just give folks listening and watching a couple of tips for how we can do a better job of helping underserved communities, particularly right now where we know that the COVID virus is taking more of a toll on some of those communities. So any tips for things we can do to help?
Well, probably the one-stop shop is going to this phila.gov/COVID because there's PHL COVID Fund, and that's kind of a one-stop shop that is providing money for organizations like Philabundance that are doing direct services. One of my favorite nonprofits is actually Project Home. What they're doing is they're giving all of us the opportunity to provide groceries to those individuals that they're housing. They're the formerly unsheltered. Have all these folks that are now kind of stuck at home, and you can go to their website and you can arrange for delivery of groceries to folks that could really use it. So that's one of my favorite nonprofits right now.
That's incredible. I wanted to ask you, but didn't want to put you on the spot for a favorite because I know you have and support so many. We really like Project Home. As you know, my day job is with Independence Blue Cross, and we have a partnership with Project Home as well. And they just do really incredible work. And I'm glad you mentioned the PHL COVID-19 Fund. We actually just announced a few minutes ago via a new video and press release that BPHL this year is really going to be positioned as more of a benefit and fundraiser, and any funds raised from the festival will go to the PHL COVID-19 Fund. So it's a great resource, really helping lots of different organizations throughout the city. We're really excited about that. Some of my favorite work that you've done is around HIV and AIDS. And that, I think, is because it's kind of a cause that was near and dear to my heart. In the 90s, I actually volunteered at Action AIDS and at this amazing organization called Camp Dreamcatcher. It's camp experiences for kids who are impacted by HIV and AIDS. And you have done so much work and won so many awards with your work for HIV and AIDS, including my favorite, maybe 2012, you won Action AIDS Favorite Straight Person of the Year, which is like the best award ever.
I think.
Yeah. That's so incredible. And I wondered if you could just talk a little bit about how you got involved in that particular cause and your work with HIV and AIDS and what that's looked like for you.
Well, before I came to Philadelphia, and although I consider myself an official Philadelphian, I started in radio in Boston. And at the time, I was there in 1977 through 1980. And towards the end of that decade of the 70s, I started reading this little section in the Village Voice about this little disease called GRID. And that's what HIV was called before we really knew that it wasn't a gay disease. And so I know that. And in Boston at that time, there's a very active AIDS activist movement. And so I covered them when I was there. So when I came to Philadelphia, I looked around to find that same kind of cohort. And it really hadn't kind of developed initially, but I kept searching and I kept looking, and I started to find those people who could tell the stories of people who lived with AIDS and actually dying of AIDS at that time, because AIDS at that time was kind of a death sentence. And there is something about it that appealed to me on several different levels. One is something that was and it was misunderstood because people didn't truly understand what HIV was. People were being discriminated against and fought against bias and discrimination all of my adult life. And it was, not a lot of information was being sent out about it. There really weren't that many people who were covering it. And I'd like to say, and I don't know this for sure, but I believe I was among the first main media to start covering it in the Philadelphia area on a regular basis. So it appealed to me on a lot of different levels. And the activists that were involved in this cause were truly groundbreakers. They were truly people who were basically working in a vacuum without any support. I got to know the founder of Babashi, Blacks Educating Blacks About Sexual Health Issues, when that was not even talked about in churches, HIV. She, Sister Rashida Hassan, was getting the information out. So all things combined, and I was so inspired by every story of every person that I met, whether it was someone living with HIV or AIDS or the activists that were fighting and just so fierce and so inspiring in the face of really people not wanting to listen or hear about this disease. And that was the fire that lit my campfire.
Oh man, it gives me chills because I vividly remember that time, and it was, I guess, kind of my very, very young adult life when all this was happening, and I remember being part of the buddy program at Action AIDS, where you were assigned to a person who was feeling isolated because they had been diagnosed with HIV, and it was a time that people were very afraid, and maybe you were isolated from friends and family because of it, and a buddy would be friends with that person essentially. And I just so vividly remember the fear and the misunderstanding that you mentioned, and it's so lovely to find people like you who are trailblazers. And in talking about this, we've been talking this week a lot about mental health and the fact that you have to talk about these issues to get people to understand. And the same is true for HIV and AIDS. And BPHL is all about innovation. And now there's been so many innovations in that work and in that world. And I'm fortunate to be on the board of an organization called Access Matters. And through my work with Access Matters, I've been educated about the advancements in HIV and AIDS and PrEP and PEP and things that limit exposure, which back then you wouldn't even have thought would be possible, right? So it's really incredible. And I so appreciate that. It feels like just everything I know of you, you always go to the spots that are most needed and most underserved. And that's incredible. You are a Philadelphian, because that is a Philly spirit right there. So you are officially a Philadelphian young lady. I'm sorry to tell you, forget Boston. Who are they? Yeah.
Back to the HIV/AIDS issue. When I started out covering it, I saw a lot of people die, and I'm sure you did too. And at that time, we were fighting to get people treatment, to try to end the stigma. And at that time, I just never thought that in my lifetime that I would see like the light at the end of the tunnel. But oh, I actually do see that. And that just to me is such incredible testimony to the work of all the people, this movement that has been pushing for the research that has led to PrEP, to research that will lead to a vaccine, the research that's led to allowing people to get their viral load to zero so that they can't transmit HIV. I never thought I'd see that day, because I was seeing so many people just die and die quickly. Within 2 years of getting a diagnosis, people were just dying. And to be able to live in my lifetime to see all this progress is the most fantastic thing that I can imagine.
It is. It reminds us to be optimistic at times like now that feel really challenging, and times when people are feeling really down in some cases, because there's such a change in our daily lives and our routines. You mentioned stories, and storytelling is, that's what you do, right? You are a storyteller. And we're seeing so many stories right now coming through multiple channels and multiple types of media. But I'm wondering if there are any stories that have come across your desk that are particularly inspiring or optimistic, or just good shows of humanity, because I think they're the ones that are really getting me through right now that I'm really excited about. So any that you want to share?
Well, it's interesting because I came across a story that I was actually very inspired by. There were these engineers at Temple University, and they decided they wanted to get involved and do something to help. And so they decided they would try to figure out a way to make shields for people for people in the healthcare business. But they were finding they were having difficulty coming up with a process that would allow them to really ramp up. And so what they did was they collaborated with their art school, and they collaborated with their library school. They collaborated with um, all these different departments inside of Temple University. And it was through the help of the people who were the artists that they came up with a whole different process that allowed them to do, instead of like 50 face masks a day, they could do 500. So to me, that was amazing. These are people that normally don't interact with each other, they don't talk to each other. I mean, engineers, artists, architects. I mean, these are very different disciplines, but they all got together, and through the synergy of that interaction, they were able to come up with some great solutions. And so they've come up with not only that, but plenty of other real amazing innovations because they went outside of their comfort zone and started listening to people that were not in their circle. And to me, that was incredibly exciting and very, very inspiring.
I love that. It's such a good story too of what we talk about a lot for innovation is that it always takes collaboration and diverse viewpoints, right? So you don't want all of the same kind of people sitting together in a room. Diversity is such a big part of that, whether it's diversity of background or ethnicity or age or job title, right? But getting different kinds of people in a room to come together, that's when you get the best innovations, because you have that different viewpoint. So that's a really good one. I hadn't heard that one, and I appreciate that it came from Temple, one of my other places of employment. So I like that a lot. So I think I might know the answer to this, but what are you most looking forward to in the days after quarantine?
Well, I have this great circle of friends, and these are women that we've been meeting together for 10 years. And we meet now on Zoom, but it's just not the same as sharing a meal together. So I'm really looking forward to getting together with my friends. We call ourselves Damsels in Success.
Yes.
It's an awesome group of very diverse women from all different walks of life, and they're all amazing. And we have the best times. We really we're able to just be totally ourselves and have so much fun. So I miss that, and I look forward to a time when we can get together and break bread.
That sounds really great. I love that name. That's so good. Among all of your many awards, one of the ones that I noted that I was just really impressed by came from the Women's Alliance for Job Equity. It was a certificate of courage for your support of women confronting discrimination. And again, you do so much, and I'm really am incredibly in awe of you. But I think your support for women too is huge. As a big feminist myself, I really appreciate that. And having those girls that you can get together with and other women that you have kinship with is really, really important. It's not the same over video. So I thought you might mention something else. I think I heard somewhere that there was supposed to be a wedding. Is that true?
Yes, yes. Oh my God. 19. My wedding was scheduled for March 20th. And so the week before, I was already agonizing. They had just the number of people that could get together to 250. And so I said, oh, okay, that's great. I'm only getting 100 people. But then the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I didn't want to put anybody at risk. And so towards the end, week before, I finally just threw in the towel and said, we've got to just put it off. It was a difficult decision, but then once I made it, I felt really good about it. So we have our marriage certificate. We've got the rings. We even have room to jump over. We've got it, but we're still kind of waiting to decide what we're going to do. Whether we're going to have a virtual wedding, a drive-in wedding, what exactly is going to happen, or whether we're just going to elope and then have a party later. So that's still in the planning stages. We're still trying to figure it out.
Getting creative. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry it was put off, but again, you did the right thing for the community, and that kind of echoes who you are. And I think I saw that it was going to be at one of our other BPHL partners locations at the Center for Architecture and Design. We love that space.
Oh, it's a great space, and I was so looking forward to it. But hopefully sometime in the future, not too far from now, I'll either be there or somewhere. I don't know, but it's happening.
It's happening. It is happening.
I don't know how it's happening.
Oh my gosh. Well, we're sorry that it had to be put off, but good move on your part, and good call, thinking ahead to not wanting to put people at risk. And I think that's really wonderful. So maybe we're almost out of time, but maybe we'll wrap up with this. What keeps you optimistic during all of this, that we'll be able to come back and rebound as a region, and that people will get back to a semblance of normalcy in their lives? What's keeping you optimistic?
I think it's just my nature. Some people are naturally optimistic. Some people are naturally pessimistic. And given the choice, we really don't know what we don't know about the future. And so given the fact that there's not knowing, I'm going to choose to be optimistic because that's my choice. We don't have enough information, I think, to really know when we'll get back to our next normal, whatever that is. But we've been through a lot. I've seen a lot of things in my lifetime that were pretty devastating. Maybe nothing quite like this, but I would like to say that given the choice, I choose hope.
I love that. That's such a great note to end on. I'm also an eternal optimist, and you just make the best of every single day, right? We only have a little bit of time here, so you make the best of every day. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Loraine Ballard Morrill, thank you so much. I want to be you when I grow up, and I just think you're incredible, and I'm so utterly thrilled to have you. And we hope to see you again and have you be part of BPHL this year.
Well, this is a mutual admiration society. I think very well of you. I think you're wonderful things. So this has been a real pleasure for me.
Thank you so much. And for everybody watching, thank you guys. I hope you enjoy the somewhat rainy day, and come back next week for our next one. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Great.